All right, good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great weekend. We'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody being here this morning. Today, we're going to go and review a little bit of information about Adjusters 24/7, and we're going to have our training segment on vacancy versus unoccupied claims, and also vandalism, malicious mischief will be part of that. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I really appreciate everybody being here today and being part of our team. We'll discuss this past week's podcasts and discuss what we do and how we do it. We'll also go over many ways to share our messages and explain what our future plans are. And then I'll also review some material that's planned to be discussed for this coming week. And of course, we will be more than happy to discuss any subject that you wish to discuss during this webinar as well. The training segment, as I said, is going to be on vacant and unoccupied claims, and also the vandalism, malicious mischief is going to be part of that. And then there'll be a general Q&A session at the end of it. The agenda for the webinar, we're going to start off with just a little information about Adjusters247.com. And that, for those of you who have been through this before, I apologize, but there's a lot of new people that are on the podcast, so I'm going to give a little bit of history at the start of each one of our webinars for those that may not be familiar with all the information about our website and everything else. But I'm also going to go and explain how to listen and download the podcast. I'm also going to talk about the blog post information and show everybody a sample of the blog post that we send out. We're also going to go over our social media involvement and how to email a request for information to us so that we have that and able to respond to it and get you the help that you need when you need it. Again, the training segment will follow that, and then we'll have a general question and answer period and an open discussion of any topics that you would like to cover while we are together this morning. If you have a question during the webinar, you can use the question box. I do monitor it as we go along through the show or through the webinar, and any questions that you have, I'll try to answer as we're moving along. But again, at the end of it, I'll unmute everybody. You start off muted, everybody starts off muted, but at the end of it, I'll unmute everybody so that we can go and have a discussion. So if you have any questions, you might want to write them down as we go through things. If I don't answer it before the end, then feel free to let me know, and we'll make sure that everybody leaves here with their questions answered. The first thing I want to start off with is just an overview of Adjusters247.com, what we do and why we do it. Basically, we're dedicated to providing claims professionals the information that they need to be more efficient and proficient. If you haven't been to our website yet, our website has a lot of information, and we try to get all that information out onto our website that we have, and this is the website itself. When you go to Adjusters247.com, you'll come to our homepage, and on our homepage we have a lot of information, including some of the material that we're going to be covering in today's webinar briefly, but also all of the links that you would need to contact us, download the podcast. The schedule of upcoming events is there. So anything that you have a question about, you can get pretty much the answer to on our website. You can also contact us through the website, which is the easiest way to get in touch with us. You can also join our newsletter, which I suggest everybody does. I put a free weekly newsletter together and send it off to everybody. But then at the top of the home page, you see these different links, and the contact us page is the easiest way to go and send us a message, either a suggestion or a comment, something that you may want to see in a future podcast, or you have an immediate question about. These get responded to right away, and whether it's good, bad, or ugly, I prefer you send me a message so that I know what it is that you're looking for, and I'm sure if you're thinking it, other people are thinking it as well. So send us that information. Also, the media resources page is very important for getting either recent blog posts that have been sent out to everybody, or the latest webinar from last week or the prior week. And then you can get from this media resources page, you can download a copy of our podcast as well. And all that information is there for you to go and access through the media resources page. Now, getting back to our sheet here, regardless of position or level of experience, the material that we discuss in each podcast will help us all to be better in our everyday lives. And what I mean by that is we format the podcast to cover a little bit of something for everybody, regardless of whether you're new in the business or you are an experienced adjuster that's been around for a while, or you're in residential, commercial. It doesn't matter what type of claims you're handling. In our podcast, we cover information that is relevant to just about everybody that's in the insurance claims industry, and that includes starting off with our introduction and the show's guest list, give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about that day. Then we move right into our severe weather update and storm reports from around the country. And then also we move from there into our catastrophe operations segment, where we offer pre-storm and post-storm tips for adjusters that may be deployed, any deployment opportunities that we hear of, and I talk with CAT operations managers regularly, and any information that I hear about possible deployments, I go and I share in our podcast, and I'll put that information on our website as well, so that you can find it there. And then we move into our claim industry news segment, where we discuss job opportunities that are available on the daily side, catastrophe side, and then I also discuss any hot topics that are happening at that moment in the industry, and we review that in the podcast as well. Then we move on to what we call our Adjusting 101 segment, where we offer guidance for our newer adjusters, but it's also good as a refresher for adjusters that haven't been out in the field for a while. This past week, we talked a lot about different hail type claims and tornado claims and water pipe claims that our adjusters are, especially the newer adjusters who may be getting deployed for their first time. They need that type of information. So we try to cover everything in a systematic way, and on a smaller type scale on the Adjusting 101 segment than we do in the next segment, which is our seasoned adjuster time, where we discuss more complex claims, and we also discuss policies, procedures, and technology issues, so that the adjusters that have been out in the field for a while, maybe haven't gone through any type of remedial training, we can go and try to help keep them ahead of a curve so they can not fall behind on what's currently happening, and also as a way to share ideas on different claim topics that are more advanced and more complex than a newer adjuster would see. But it's good for the newer adjusters to listen to those segments as well. That way they can get exposed to all of the different materials and all of the different things that they're going to run into somewhere down the line. So we try to keep it in a way that is not too technical, but offers a little bit of insight into what the seasoned adjusters are seeing. And then we move into our time management and organizational tips and tricks for managers and staff. One thing that I learned a long time ago is if you can eliminate a lot of the wasted time that we run into every single day, that just makes you more money in the long run. Most of us are getting paid by the file. A lot of us are not on salary. We go and make our money based on just how organized that we are. And this is a segment where we go and include some different ideas and techniques that you can use to improve your time management, squeeze more day out of your day, and that's what we use that segment for. And then we use the next segment, what we call our reality check segment, where we share different successes and setbacks that all of us can learn from. And some of these, unless you've been there in a CAT situation where you pull into town and on a deployment, your first deployment, and there's no places to, no rooms to rent. The hotels are all closed, and you have to sleep in your car for a couple of weeks and basically bathe in a gas station parking lot like I have. Some of those things will help you to hear those stories, and that's what we use this segment for. That way you can plan ahead and learn from both the good and the bad of the business, and there's a lot of both, but you have to be prepared for it, and that's what we use this segment for. And then we end the podcast by discussing what's coming up later on in the week. We also answer any questions that may have been asked by email or any calls that I received. We discuss that, and then we also go and make sure that we let everybody know how they can go and get in touch with us, either through the website or email or through any of the social media sites that we're a part of, and we're on just about all of them. Immediately after the podcast is published, I go and I make sure that everybody has the information that they need to go and download that. But within minutes of us publishing that podcast, it's available on our RSS feed. So you can actually set up the RSS feed to come directly into your Outlook or into your whatever you're using is for your system. But it'll come into your system, and you don't even have to download anything once you do the RSS feed. But if you don't want to go that direction, then we always make sure that everybody understands exactly how they can get in touch with us. And we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on Google Play, TuneIn, we're SoundCloud, we're on just about every major site that there is as far as distribution of our podcast. So you'll always be able to get in touch with us, get that information that you need. And then as soon as it is published, I send out a blog post to everybody, letting them know that it is available, how they can download it, and then we make sure that any emails or phone calls that we get from claims professionals needing guidance, they always take priority and are responded to immediately. So if you have a question about anything, I had several this past week from adjusters who were either new to the business or they're getting exposure to new parts of the business and had some questions, and they sent an email letting me know what they needed, and I put a bunch of information together for them and got it to them, and make sure that everybody's able to stay informed and get the answers that they need to keep working their claims. By now, you should have a pretty good idea of what Adjusters247.com does and how we do it. You should also know how to listen to the podcast and how to find us. You should understand by now how we communicate with the claims professionals we currently have on our list. Now, in the future, our goal is to expand the number of claims professionals that we reach on a daily basis. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn, we're on every possible social media site that there is out there, and every day I share the information on every single one of those social media sites and the groups that I'm in, and we're trying to get everybody aware of what's going on. And my request to you is forward our information, our website information, to any claims associates that you have, or forward one of our updates to friends that you have that are in the business, so that we can go and get as many people part of the process as possible. It's not that we're building up any big database where we're going to sell people stuff or anything else like that. We just want to make sure that the information is out there for those that want it and are interested in the education and the material that we cover. And I want to make sure that you are getting the information that you need. And if you can forward that information to whoever your claims associates are, I would appreciate that. That's a big part of what we're doing and how we do it. And we're also going to be adding a lot of reference material to our website this week. I had to be out of town quite a bit this week, and next week I'll be adding a lot of reference material to the website to make it even more inclusive. And we're also going to be adding more claims-related sponsors to our family, and make sure, and these are going to be people that, again, aren't going to be trying to sell anybody anything. They're just going to be able to offer services, whether it's continuing education credits or licensing or materials, or stuff, that tools that adjusters need. All of those are going to be added to our website within the next couple of weeks, and you're going to see some improvements on that this first week here. And that's basically the background on Adjusters247.com and how to get in touch with us and what we do. Next, we're going to be talking about the claims-related training for this week, which I'm going to talk about vacant versus unoccupied claims, and specifically part of that is vandalism and malicious mischief claims. And some of the first things that you're going to have to do when you have a vacancy issue is determine, was anybody living in the dwelling at the time of the loss? And if there is a question about, whether it was vacant or unoccupied, the policies that we deal with go and discuss the definitions of vacant. Vacant is basically there's nobody there. Everything is gone. And the vacancy clause usually kicks in on most policies at about 30 days. Once some policies are 60 days. But when you're dealing with trying to figure out if something is vacant or unoccupied, the difference is very specific. And when you are dealing with an unoccupied dwelling, and that means it doesn't have the basic necessities to use that property as it was intended to be used. And that could be residential, it could be commercial. Either way, you have that distinction that you have to look at. But keep in mind that typically it's going to be a 30-day window for that to occur. When the home is unoccupied, or there is some question as to the limited use of a commercial property, you have to make the determination whether that property is vacant or unoccupied. You have to go and take a look at the information that is available to you at the time of the loss, and review all the coverage that's available as far as the policy, any endorsements. It's very important that when you are trying to establish whether a house is vacant or unoccupied, that you go and review all of the forms and endorsements that are part of that policy, because some endorsements, they take away coverage, and some endorsements actually add coverage, especially for VMM. And you're going to need to make sure that you review that policy language. Again, the vacancy provisions are contained in the exclusions part of an HO form. On a commercial policy, they will go and limit the perils by saying that if the building was vacant for a certain amount of days, whether it's 30 or 60 days, that they won't cover anything that's as a result of a certain peril that's insured against. Now, the HO policy specifically excludes vandalism, sprinkler leakage, glass breakage, water damage, and theft if the property's been vacant for more than 30 days. That's on the homeowner's policy. The HO3 policy goes and specifies that, and you should always be familiar with the addition, in addition to the form, but the addition of the HO3 policy, because some of the wording is different just based on the addition, and the carrier that you're working for may have uh, uh, their own type of HO3 policy. It's based around the regular ISO office HO3, but they've added their own little bells and whistles and clarifications and stipulations to the standard HO3 form. So you want to make sure that you are always looking at all of that information when you go and get a new claim. Commercial policies exclude any type of loss like we're talking about here for vacancy if the building itself is less than 31% occupied as far as their full total square footage. That's where it comes into play, where you're going to have to get copies of leases. You'll have to talk with tenants, see if their store was occupied or unoccupied at the time of loss, so we can determine whether their specific store is going to be included in the calculations for that 31% total square foot leased or occupied calculation. Vacant buildings, the reason that they have these types of exclusions in the policy is because, of course, vacant properties are more susceptible to damage and at a greater risk, just due to the fact that it has a lot of opportunity for the bad guys to go in there and do certain things. I'm going to show some photos here in just a minute of a claim that we handled last year that explains this a little bit more. But vacant buildings are always going to be at a greater risk for loss, just because there's nobody there to check on things, and there's no way that you'll be aware of a situation if you're that building owner or that homeowner until you come back. And if it's more than 30 or 60 days, then it's probably going to be an excluded loss at that point. Vacancy exclusions, if not occupied or doesn't have amenities. That's basically what we were talking about earlier, where it's considered unoccupied if it does not have the basic amenities that property would need to go and have that premises used for the purpose that it was utilized, and that is making sure that they have all kinds, the electric, the water, they have the utilities, they have stuff inside of there. So if they can use it as a dwelling and they have stuff inside of there, it's not going to be considered vacant or unoccupied. If they do turn things off, take their things, move, go out of town for a couple of months, then we're going to have to spend our time to make sure that we get everything that we can documented. And the way that we do that is, first of all, you're going to want to take a recorded statement of the insured and any other residents that may have had access to that dwelling. You're going to want to find out exactly what they know as far as when the house was last occupied, and when they, if it was a prior tenant, you're going to want to get a hold of them to go and find out when they moved out. If they turned off the electric, then the next thing would be, we're going to want to talk to the utility companies to find out if the electric was on, if the water was on, the gas, telephone. You find out when it was shut off. If all that was shut off, 90 days ago, and now they're putting in a loss for water damage or some sort of a vandalism and malicious mischief claim, chances are it's going to be excluded and not covered under the policy. So keep that in mind whenever you get a claim like this. Vacant and unoccupied claims, always check with the post office, if there's any forwarding orders. Um, that way you can see, if that is going on, if you've got a real big file, real big amount of damage, then you need to make sure that when those people left and when their change of address was actually put in and effective. That goes a long way in determining how long that place has been sitting empty. Um, Also, if this is a fire that you're talking about, you're going to want to talk to the investigators and the firemen to see what they saw when they got there, and also what type of contents were inside of the dwelling. And if it was at that point, occupied or vacant based on what the firemen saw at the time of their investigation, and what also they were told by any interviewees that are there after the fire is out, and they actually talk to. We want to find out exactly what was said, who said it, and find out if there was anything that they heard of that was inconsistent with what the insured tells us, and what the tenants tell us, or anybody else that we've interviewed to that point. You're also going to want to go and obtain any photos that were taken during the investigation, either by the fire people or any of the other investigators. County might send out some building inspectors. They may go and look to see if the houses or the commercial building has to be condemned, if it is something that still can be occupied. So you're going to want to get any copies of all of that so we can determine if there is a vacancy issue, we can get as much documentation as possible. Also, you're going to want to interview the neighbors. What did they see and observe at that house prior to the date of loss? Did they see people moving in and out? When the neighbors, most neighbors, they notice when they're having a neighbor move, and they know when that house started sitting empty. So you want to go and interview the neighbors and find out from them, what they know about that loss, and if they've had any other conversations with the insured at that residence. You want to make sure that you capture all of that by talking to the neighbors. You don't necessarily have to get a recorded statement, but it's always helpful if you do. But at least interview them, and that way you have their information that you can go and include in your report to the company, and we can make sure at that point that everybody is on the same page and we don't have any issues as far as documentation is concerned. Also, you might want to contact the cellular providers. Most of the times when people move, they go and they change their address for their cell phone carrier. You want to check to see when that was put in. And then a big part also is the property up for sale? If in fact it was for sale, then you're going to want to interview the real estate agent to go and make sure you get any particulars, how long the house sat empty, did they do any repairs prior to the listing. It's another way to go and document exactly when that house was vacant, and that way we can go and put that in the report. And again, if you can get a recorded statement from the agent, that's great. If not, interview them and put it into the report, and just let the carrier know what the situation is there. If you're dealing with commercial property, you're going to want to get a copy of all the leases between the building owner and the different lessees. That could be store owners. It could be somebody who is just renting a space for an office. It could be repair bays that are leased out individually. But get copies of all of that, and then interview those tenants. Make sure that they're still using that space, and it still has everything furnished that they would need to go and conduct business as usual if they were there working. If not, if they don't have, say they went out of business a couple of months ago, and all they have in there is a couple of little furniture items, and everything else is moved out. or they may have some stock in there, but no desk, no computers, all that stuff is gone. That section of that commercial building would not be included in the 31% requirement for the vacancy restrictions, and because it does not have the materials necessary to carry on business as usual if they were to be open and not have suffered that loss. You also want to ask them how many employees they have and get the names and contact them to find out, have you still been going to work? I've had it several times over the years where I've contacted employees and they tell me, no, I got laid off 3 months ago. I haven't been to work there in over 3 months. And you want to go and make sure that you get as much information as you can, contact those people, and then find out if they actually are still in business or if they've cut back, laid off. Especially when you're dealing with fires, there's a big consideration on financial motive, and if people are going out of business, they're laying employees off. The financial distress is a big motive for a lot of people to go and start fires and have other type of theft, burglary claims. It's a red flag that needs to be investigated. And the best way to do that is through the employees. Now, the last part on this deals with arson. And the reason I'm including this is because there's some interesting case law that is out there when looking at an arson fire, and it's different from state to state, and it also can be county to county, to be honest with you. But most of the time it's state to state. And that is looking at arson claims as being vandalism and malicious mischief. Because of the definition of vandalism being the intentional damaging to property of others, arson certainly goes and meets that criteria. And a lot of courts, most courts, have agreed with that. There's a few, however, that state that that wasn't the intent of the vandalism, malicious mischief exclusion to include arson, or people would have specifically stated arson in the exclusion. But a lot of courts have said that, especially the courts that are looking at purely by the definition of the words vandalism and malicious mischief, vandalism, mindful, willful, intentional, malicious, wanton, reckless, behavior on the part of somebody that results in destruction, defacement, or damage to property that is belonged to other people. Those courts that look at those definitions side with including arson under the vandalism, malicious mischief. So if you do get a claim and it is intentionally said, or even if initially it doesn't appear to be intentionally set, but you're not sure yet, you want to go and cover the vandalism, malicious mischief topic with the carrier. If the claim is in Tennessee or Florida or Ohio, wherever the claim is, try to get people to go and at the carrier, get them to take a look at what the case law is. You can look it up yourself in the state if you decide if it's a full adjustment, you're going to need to. And then you can go and address it, at least if this is an arson fire. A lot of times I know that in fires that I've handled over the years, I know that it was a set fire. I know that based on the evidence and the testing that's done, I know we had incendiary devices that were used. But at that point, if you can't put the match in the hands of the insured, then the carrier still has an obligation to either pay that claim or, if nothing else, in some states, you still have to pay the mortgagee. So because they have an insurable interest. But by looking at this vandalism and malicious mischief angle and exclusion, even if if the fire, even if there's where you can't put the match in the insured's hand, if it's an arson claim, it's proved to be incendiary, and somebody intentionally set that fire, if that property's been vacant for more than 30 days, it can be denied based on the vacant and unoccupied exclusions in the policy. So you always want to address that, regardless of uh, of anything else that's going on there. You still always want to address it if you're dealing with an arson type claim, especially. Now, let me go and share a couple of things with you here. The first that I want to go through is a bunch of photos that I have, and let me see where they went. Anyway, let me see here. Bear with me just 1 second. All right, I'm going to have to get back to that, and we'll have to go over that at a later time because they're gone, and I don't want to take up everybody's time. But the important thing to remember is when you're dealing with any type of claim that is possibly you're going to be dealing with the vacancy issue or unoccupied claims, you're going to want to get the carrier involved, and you're going to want to make sure that you get all the information, a recorded statement, get the copies of all the utilities, talk with the tenants, make sure that you get all the information that you're going to need to address that vacancy issue when you're talking with the carriers. Now, topics that we plan to cover this week, any cat deployments. We do have 2 major storms that are brewing that are going to be hitting somewhere the central United States up into the northeast this week, with severe weather forecast for the southern states as well. So we're going to be watching that. We're also going to be talking about third-party liability and inland marine claims, theft losses, fire investigations, and we have a lot of different topics planned for this week and guests that are planned for this week. If you have a suggestion for a topic that you'd like to see covered, feel free to send me a comment or an email. I'll give you my email address here in just a second, but we also are helping Action Catastrophe Team expand by getting their message out to the carriers and adjusters. If you haven't been to their site yet, go to www.actioncatastropheteam.com, and you can fill out their adjuster information sheet and make sure that you get on their roster, so that if something does happen, they can already have you in their system to contact about a possible deployment. Also, we're going to be making sure that not only do we have guests this week coming up, but we also get any type of feedback that you would like our guests to be discussing. So whether it's a topic that you want or a specific guest that you may know of, send that information off to me as well, either through the website or my email address. Right now, though, I want to open up I'm going to unmute everybody and give everybody an opportunity to go and ask any questions that they have. And right now, everybody should be unmuted. So is there any questions on anything that I haven't covered yet that anybody's got a question about that we need to cover now? Okay, we'll move on then and make sure that we finish up by, again, thank you for joining us in our Saturday morning 11 o'clock webinars that we have. We have one every week, and the login that you used for today's webinar will get you into every one of the ones that we have. So you'll get reminders from GoToWebinar like you did today and yesterday that the webinar's coming up, and that way you can be here for it. We always do our webinars live with no replays, and again, if you have any questions at all, you can give me a call on my cell phone at 754-208-7049. or you can email me at tom@adjusters247.com. You can also send us those comments and suggestions for future topics through our website, adjusters247.com, and go to our media resources page so that you can go and get us that information, and we can make sure that we include it in our weekly podcast this week. But I hope everybody has a great weekend, and again, I really appreciate you being part of our team. If there's any way that I can help you, just feel free to let me know. I hope you take care now, and God bless.